All right, what's up guys, Josh here. So as you guys know, I'm an unprofitable poker player, but I'm on my journey to become profitable. And the fastest way to get better at something is to hire a coach who's been there, done that. So I actually reached out on a whim to Arrow Poker just on Instagram asking if he does coaching. And he actually did respond. He said his rates were too high for me with my current situation since I'm only working with a 4K bankroll, but he was nice enough to take me as a student, basically just documenting the process of turning me, who's an absolute fish, into a profitable pro. So basically I had my first coaching session, as you guys saw in the last video, and I played a few sessions after that, which I'm gonna cover today in today's video. So we did our coaching session at the Wynn, and as any person who is eager to get better does, I went ahead and played a session at the Wynn. So I played 1-3, $500 buy-in, and there's a few notable hands in the session, so let's just dive right in. So hand number one, basically I open under the gun +1 with king, queen offsuit. So king of hearts, queen of clubs, 2 callers. Flop comes 3, queen, 4 with a flush draw out there. I bet $40, and then the guy 2 seats to my left raises me $55. The other guy gets out of the way, and in this situation, I just flat call. I'm not going anywhere with top pair strong kickers. So turn is a king of diamond, which improves us to 2 pair. I'm loving this, right? So I just check. And surprisingly, he checks back. The river now comes a queen of hearts. So your boy just boats up, right? We're riding the boat, we on the boat. And then I actually checked just because, you know, I figured like the flush draw got there on the turn. Granted, this guy was playing super aggressive, so I actually had no idea what he had. He might have been tilted since I saw him get beat a few times, but he was like very aggressive, involved a lot of pots. And then he bets $120. I have around, I think we started around like full stack, let's just say 500 effective. So I'll put the actual number on the screen, and I Hollywood for a little bit just because I feel like if I just instantly shove, it looks too strong. Granted, I don't know if it even matters in like 1-3 if you Hollywood or not. People are just gonna play the strength of their hands. So let me know down below in the comments if you guys Hollywood. Is that a fishy play? But yeah, I think then jam, and this guy goes deep into the tank. He's just tanking for minutes. And, you know, I'm there with like pretty much the nuts, effectively the nuts. I guess I lose to, pocket, what do I lose to there? 2 queens, pocket kings maybe? Yeah, I think pocket kings is the nuts. Or like, yeah, pretty much pocket kings. But I'm just sitting there hoping, just praying he calls. And eventually he does make the call. And then I take it down and he shows the ace high flush. So he turned it and then he was trying to slow play it, but I got there. So I think this was one of those hands where I feel like he probably should have bet the turn. I just feel like you don't want to give anyone a free card in this situation, especially on such a wet board where, you know, there's a queen out there, king out there. Yeah, in general, I feel like it's best just not give free cards, but I'm not sure if it's better to slow play or not. My coach Arrow always says just not to slow play for the most part, especially in the 1-3 streets where it's all about just going to value town. So yeah, that was the first hand. It was, you know, doubled up right there. So then the second hand shortly after that, this was just a move I did because the guy was short stacked. So he opened $35 under the gun, which is a massive raise. It's like almost 12 big blinds. He only has like 120 behind. So I looked down at the Rockets, pocket aces. So then I just 3-bet him to 150 just to put him all in. He snap calls with ace king, and then yeah, take that one down. So this was a really good session. I think overall I'd rate like my play at a 7 out of 10. Just because I think I should have left after the 3-hour mark, maybe 4 hours. After 4 hours, I started to like get deep stacked, and then I was trying to make plays, bluffing, spewing, calling hands I shouldn't have been calling. So yeah, I ended up leaving at like 8 a.m. So I'll pop the actual stats of like how much I won and how long I played, but this was my first win at the Wynn this year. The second session I'm gonna cover, I came back at 6 p.m. the next day. So as soon as I sat down, it was at the same table I left at, which was 8 a.m. that morning. And then I recognized this one guy that was sitting in the exact same seat, and he had around like $1,500 to $1,600. So he was like pretty deep, like buy-in's 500, right? So he was up off his like max buy-in by 1K or so. But he was making a lot of moves last night. I remember when I was talking with Arrow, he made a point to look at who's on the table and, you know, go for the table change. I feel like sometimes people want to like outplay good players, but like what's the point of trying to outplay a good player when you can just like play against fish, right? Like obviously I'm a fish as well, so you probably want to play against me if you ever see me in person. But yeah, I saw this guy and I just table changed immediately. So I actually wrote down a few goals for this session. The first one was to remain disciplined with my pre-flop ranges. especially after hour 2, since I noticed the first session I started like getting looser as the session wore on and I got impatient. Try to walk away if I'm tilted, and then don't bluff unless I'm in position, since I was making some plays when I was out of position, which is just not the move. So yeah, those are my pre-session goals. So hand number 1 was, this is like the tightest fold of my life. I remember when I made this fold, I'm like texting my friends who I played poker with in college, and I'm like, dude, am I nit now, like, for making this fold? So let me know down below in the comments if I'm a nit. Am I just like an old man coffee, or like young man coffee, I guess? Young man tea. I like drinking tea now at the table. But yeah, basically middle position opens at 12. There's 2 callers, and then I look down at pocket queens in the small blind. So I 3-bet to $50, and then middle position actually 4-bets me to 175. And then he only has like 250 behind, and I just sat down at the table. I think probably less than an hour at this point. So I actually think about it for quite a bit, but I just felt like if I'm against kings and aces, I'm just way far behind, like just giving money at that point. So it was either a shove or fold situation, just because like the stack sizing and like, you know, how much to call. I got to call like 125 to potentially win like 500, right? If I get his whole stack. But then if I'm against like aces and kings, I'm basically like dead, right? So I just let it go. This is like the tightest hold of my life. I remember when I used to play poker, I would always look for chances to like get the money in, even if I was like kind of bad in these coin flips, just because I was like much more of a gambler. But this time I'm just trying to become a profit grinder. So I'm trying to avoid these like higher variance routes and just pick better spots. So tell me, you know, am I a nit or not, right? So that was the first hand. The second notable hand, I opened Jack 9 suited from middle position, hijack, and one of the blinds calls. Flop comes 2-4 queen, 2 clubs. I bet $25, continuation bet, only 1 caller, the hijack. Turn comes the ace of diamond. I believe I c-bet again for around like $40. I actually like took poor notes. I'm trying to get better with the note taking. I'm actually gonna have better footage and production value after a few videos, so stay tuned. But I think I continuation bet for a small size, trying to rep the ace. And then he jams for like 170. And then I had the flush draw, right, on the flop. So I just like think through it, but then I don't think he was deep enough to call. And yeah, I just let that one go. So this was another situation where in the past, if I had a flush draw, like regardless of how high, like it could be a 3 high flush draw and I'm like fucking shipping the money in. But now I'm trying to think through the math. Okay, is how much I have to call worth how much I can win? And then what are my probabilities? I'm not quite there with in terms of sharpness with like exact, like to the, you know, 10th percentage wise, but I'm getting there, right? So I actually thought through it, and this was a spot I used to would have shipped, but yeah, I just folded, wait for a better spot. So the next hand is a fun one. So there's a new Korean guy that just sat down at the table, and he seemed pretty good. You know, you can tell he was probably here for like the WSOP, or like definitely plays a lot of poker, just the way he was handling his chips, like his sizing, frequencies, everything. So he raises under the gun to $15. Then I look down at A7 suited spades. So I make the call on the button. So it's heads up. So then the flop comes 6-6 queen, 1 spade. He c-bets for $15, and then I call. Turn is the jack of spades. So now I turn the flush draw. He bets $40, and then I call. And then a river is an offsuit 10. So your boy bricked the flush draw. He checks, and then in this spot, there's no way ace high is good, right? Especially with like my shitty kicker of 7. So I go ahead and bet 120, just repping a really polarized hand. Like I either am taking him to value town or I just have complete air. So he actually thinks about it for a while, but eventually does make the fold. And I table my bluff. I was like a little too excited just getting the bluff through. It felt good. But yeah, I don't know if you're supposed to table your bluffs. Like let me know down below in the comments. Do you guys usually show your bluffs or not? I asked Air about this one, and he said only show the bluffs if you think you can get someone to behave differently later. Like if my bluff will cause someone to play poorly later, then I think it's probably a profitable decision. But he said usually just don't show your cards unless you have to. Okay, the last and final hand of this session is what I would call the hand of the night, or you know, like Sports Center top 10 plays, Josh the Grinder top 1 hand. Okay, that joke, but basically I opened pocket jacks from middle position for $15, button calls, and then small blind, who was the Korean guy from the hand before, he 3-bets to $85. So that's like a pretty big sizing, right? It's like over 5x, repping a strong hand. So I can't go anywhere with jacks there. So I call, and then the button tags along. So the button was the guy who like 4-bet from the first hand. Flop comes ace, jack, 6, 2 spades. So I flop middle set. This is exactly the board you want to flop a set on, because if he has an ace, like ace king, ace queen, even ace jack, then I'm gonna just stack him. And then if he has pocket sixes, which I don't know why he'd ever 3-bet pocket sixes in a 1-3 game, I stack him. I really only lose to like aces at this point, right? But it's a pretty wet board, so he goes ahead and fires again for $85 again, and then I just flat. So does the button. So I guess on this street, you could argue that I could have repopped it just because the board was kind of wet, but I also felt like they could have been on all sorts of hands. So yeah, I just flat there, but maybe in hindsight I should have repopped it. The turn is a 3 of spades, so the flush draw does get there, and then he just ships it all in for around 300. And then, yeah, I can't go anywhere with set. If he hits a flush, he hits a flush. And then I snap it off, and then I just table my hand, and then river's a brick, and we're good. So that was the biggest pot of the night. I basically doubled up plus some change. And yeah, I feel like in general, what I noticed with playing this style is you don't play many hands, but when you do play hands, when they're like big pots, if you're playing tighter pre-flop, usually you're just going to have like a stronger continuation range, or you just miss the flop, right? Whereas I felt like when I was playing like Jack 10 off, Jack 9 off, random ass, like, you know, even King 9 off, Queen 10 off, all those hands that make a pair, but not very strong kicker, you get put in these positions where like maybe someone out kicks you and then you're putting the money in, but you're not confident about your pairs. So I feel like by tightening up my pre-flop range, I just avoid these situations. So yeah, I was there with 2 of my friends at the Wynn, so I was pretty deep at this point, and I just want to rack up, right? I'm just getting back into the game, so I don't want to like play deep stack and then mess up all of a sudden and lose my whole stack, right? So I just color up, and then yeah, it was another really great session. This was my biggest win at the Wynn now. I think it was like $700 or $800, and yeah, I'll pop the numbers up on the screen as well. I would rate my play on this one an 8 out of 10, just because I felt like, in contrast to the previous session, I didn't really bleed my stack out once I made that big pot. I felt like overall I was just playing tight, playing right, playing in position. So yeah, I was really happy with my play there. Since I'm a degenerate, we just drive over to Resorts World right afterwards. So if you follow my series, you're going to notice I really like bouncing between the Wynn and Resorts World. So even tonight, after I play at Resorts World, I might go to the Wynn again just because my sleep schedule is like really messed up. So it's like almost 2:30 a.m., but I woke up at 5 p.m., right? So it's like the middle of the day for me. So yeah, I'm going to cover the final session of this video. And basically, we're at Resorts World. The only difference between Resorts World and the Wynn in terms of structure, for the most part, is at Resorts World, it's a $400 max buy-in. So not quite as deep for the buy-in as the Wynn. And one other difference is in Resorts World, you can straddle on the button, whereas at the Wynn, you can only straddle under the gun. Yeah, we have a few hands to cover here. Hand number 1, I look down at 5-4 suited. Under the gun +1 raises, and then I call from middle position with $12. Hijack and button both call. Flop comes 9, 10, 4, 2 diamonds, so I flop a flush draw. It actually checks over to me, and I just bet $25. So why did I bet $25 here? Actually, I had a pair and a flush draw, so I bet just because I had a like strong flop, and I can easily improve to 2 pair trips or a flush, and then everyone but one called, right? So 2 callers, turns an ace, check, check, river's a queen, and it just checks around. The guy shows pocket 5s. So my question to you guys is, in this instance, should I have given up? Or should I have barreled the turn just to like represent the story? Because like no draws really get there on the turn. I guess on the river I could have bombed it, like repping King Jack or something, or Jack 8. But in this situation, since he had pocket 5s, I'm sure if I kept barreling, then I probably would have got him off the hand. But yeah, just curious. I wanted to post this hand just to get your guys' thoughts. Like, did I do a good job betting with the bottom pair flush draw here, or would you just check and take your free card? All right, on to the next hand. So low jack raises to $12, and I call from the button with ace 10 off. Flop comes ace king 8. It checks over to me, and I bet $20. Turns a 10, checks to me again, and then I bet $40. And then river is a clean card, offsuit 2. And then I actually, I was trying to bet 120, but I think my stacks were like not organized correctly. So I put $20 on top of my stack, and I shoved it in. So I was trying to do like 120, but it actually was just $100. And kid just flicks in his black chip, so 1 chip call, and then I'm good. So that was a pretty straightforward hand. All right, hand number 3, under the gun limps. I raised 6-8 off to $15. Big blind and under the gun call. So I actually like I think I missed the flop and then just folded. And then my note here is I'm just like, why the fuck am I raising that, lol? I told myself to isolate under the gun, but just for a cope reason. Like I think I'm, what was it? Yeah, I think I don't know why I'm raising there. So this is this This is a funny note. Like, don't raise garbage just to target players, and then also don't get peer pressure into straddling. There's like a few times I get like peer pressure into straddling. I used to always straddle, but I noticed that when I straddle, I become more like action gambly. And for this specific grinder journey, I'm just trying to play lower variance route. And yeah, so yeah, another note is just like don't get peer pressure into straddling. Although I will say it's good for the game if everyone is doing it. And I asked Arrow about this, and Arrow said that straddling is good if you're better than other players, because then you're playing big pots against them, which is what you want. But for me, I'm just still learning, so yeah, just I try not to straddle now unless everyone's doing it, or if shorthanded. Okay, so hand number 4, under the gun raises to $15, hijack 3 bets to $60, and then I look down at pocket fives from the small blind. This was a spot I used to would have auto called, but in this case, I was actually like trying to see like how deep these guys were, because your chance of hitting a set's like 12.5%, and you essentially need to like get paid out like like 1 in 7.5. So like yeah, like for simplicity's sake, like 1 to 10, right? 1 to 9, 1 to 10. So if I call the $60, I need to have like at least, you know, $550, $600 that I could stack them for. But the original raiser has 225 behind, and the hijack has 150 behind, so they're both pretty short. So I just let this one go, and then of course the flops 510x, and then they both shoved. So yeah, I would have stacked them because they showed down with weak hands, but in this case the odds just weren't good, and I feel like this was the right positive EV play, but the outcome was just not positive EV, I guess. Or I guess the outcome was different than what the long-term, you know, positive. What am I trying to? Basically, it was the right play, but then the wrong outcome, right? So if I called there, it would have been the wrong play, but then a lucky outcome, essentially. All right, so this next hand was like kind of a weird one. Basically, I was late position with like 5-7 off, and then like it was like a family pot. There's like 7 people. So I think that's why I called, just because everyone else called. It was like a limp pot. Flop comes 2-4-6, let's just say rainbow, and then I have like a open-ended straight draw. So then I bet $35, and then there's 2 callers. I actually thought I was heads up with the short stack, but I didn't see the other guy. So turns a king, and then I think it was check, check, and then the river's a 7, and then one guy check. Because I didn't see the other guy, like, because I was in seat 1, I believe, so I like couldn't see him. I show out of turn, actually. I just flipped my cards over because I'm like late position. But then the middle guy like hadn't acted yet. So I apologize, obviously. I was already 8 hours into playing at this point for the day. So yeah, that guy just checks anyways. He saw my card. He saw out of 7. And then yeah, we take it down. So he claimed he was going to bet $200 with his ace queen, but I think he might have been joking. He's like one of those like super loose guys. Kept like, I don't know, he's like not a very good player, but he's just one of those loose guys that like talks a lot. But yeah, he didn't seem mad. He said it in a joking manner. So I guess lesson learned, always just to look around and like take some time to think and process before making a decision. Sometimes I already have my decision in my mind before I'm ready to act, but then I just fucking just act anyways, like automatically. But yeah, in general, I think it's best just to try to take the same amount of time to process and think and then act. But in general, I think it's best just to have a set amount of time it takes for you to act. So like it could be like 5 seconds, 10 seconds, hopefully not more than 10 seconds or else you might hold up the action. Obviously on bigger hands, you can think longer, but yeah, just basically take your time is the note I have for myself from this hand. Last and final hand of the night. So we're short-handed, and I look down at big blind with 4-6 of clubs. So there's a straddle, hijack raises $20, button straddle calls, and then I call with 4-6 of clubs. So flop is 4-jack-5. I flop bottom pair, but flop just checks around. So the turn is another 4, and I improve the trips, and then the turn checks around as well. The river's a king. It checks to the hijack, who's the original raiser, and he fires $75, and then I call. I'm not going anywhere with trips. And he shows ace-3 off for a bluff, so we take it down, and yeah, that's pretty much the last notable hand of this session. Honestly, with Resorts World, since there's less tables, it usually gets short-handed towards the end of the night, and then I don't really like capture all the hands. But I think those are the ones that I think were worth calling out for this vlog, and I would rate my performance in this session is a 7.5 out of 10. Like I said, I was like sometimes calling junk. I feel like sometimes with short-handed, I get too loose. But yeah, overall it was another good session, another profitable one. I think I profited a few $100s, and I'll pop the numbers on the screen. So yeah, super stoked. Basically, before I got coaching from Arrow, I was in the red. I played 3 sessions, lost 500, 500, and then 399. So I was down basically 1400. And then I think after these 3 sessions, I was like almost back to even or like a little up. So yeah, I need to check my numbers actually. Didn't prepare them ahead of time. But yeah, basically I was able to crawl out of the hole with Arrow's coaching. Obviously, I think with these hands and like the way I was playing well. As you saw, my rating was all 7.5 or higher out of 10 self-rating. But of course I was hitting cards and running pretty good. So yeah, super stoked. These were the first 3 sessions after I started getting coaching by Arrow. So check out his vlog. Arrow plays poker. He's a 2-5 cash game specialist at the Wynn. If you're ever at the Wynn, go say hi, get a wristband from him. And yeah, that's gonna conclude this video. Be sure to like and subscribe and follow me on this journey where I turned from basically a lifelong fish to hopefully break even or even profitable.